I think the world needs, especially the younger generation, to learn more, especially about money, to understand it better. A lot of the issues we have in the world today could be solved if people just learned about money, how to run a business, how to be more successful, how to think like wealthy people, rich people, being able to see the big picture and not just trying to work 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year for 40 or 50 years of your life to retire on half as much as you made while you were working.
What's going on, Better Than Rich Show listener? Today, you're going to kind of have your mind blown. I'll explain why in a second. But Mike and I had the privilege of interviewing Deven Wohlwend. And just to give you a sense, Devin is 16 years old, and he has a net worth over 7 figures. So we were intrigued, to say the least, when Devin came across our list of options on this podcast because, of course, how could you turn down an opportunity to meet a 16-year-old millionaire? And he gets into how he did it. He is amazingly polished, especially for a 16-year-old. And he's somebody who has been investing ever since he was 7 years old. I think he did his first real estate deal when he was 7, where he sourced all the money from families and friends and, basically financed the deal and then, flipped it and all that stuff. I mean, it's a really incredible story to watch what he's doing. And it's just inspiring. It's especially inspiring for me as a father of 2 sons to listen to someone like this and say, wow, there's an example of excellence in parenting. We do get into that topic, how his parents, taught him. We get into topics like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Obviously, we get into real estate and investing and all of those different things. But and even some of the daily practices that Devin has, they're more sophisticated and more disciplined than many adults, right? And we get into that. We even play devil's advocate and kind of push back. And he had some really good answers, especially, again, for a 16-year-old. It was really incredible to get to witness this. He's already written a couple of books. His family, has a YouTube channel that's really amazing. He's putting out content all the time on social media. And he even has an investing group for kids that he tells you about at the end. I definitely want you to check that out, especially if you have children. And I told my son about it, who's 8, and he's like, oh, he did it when he was 7. I gotta listen to this episode. So my son, Elijah, is already excited to listen to this. I hope you're excited. This may be one to listen to with the kids, but I hope that you enjoy. And let's get on with the show with Deven Wohlwend.
So welcome back to the Better Than Rich Show. I'm here, Mike Abramowitz, here with Andrew Biggs and Deven Wohlwend. Welcome to the Better Than Rich Show. How are you today?
I'm doing very well, and thank you for having me on.
Well, we appreciate it. You could probably listen, or you could tell this is not a grown-ass man yet. He has the results of a grown-ass man, and as you heard in his bio, but my goodness, Devin, you're the officially the youngest person that we've had on the show, but you have some really incredible accolades, man. So I would love for you to just kind of why don't you give us a little bit of a rundown? All right, tell us. I mean, you're 15 right now. You have 40 units that you currently are working with. You're an accredited investor. I mean, some people work their entire life to try to become an accredited investor, and you're an accredited investor at 15 years old. Is that accurate? Did I read that right?
Well, actually, I turned 16 a few days ago, but yeah, I am an accredited investor.
Well, happy birthday!
Thank you.
I stand corrected. So, give us, Devin. Why don't you give us the journey to becoming an accredited investor by 15 years old? Why don't we start there?
Well, I've been learning about business and investing since I was born. My parents have been buying real estate since well before I was born. So when I was born, they just decided, well, let's teach them a little bit about this. Maybe someday they'll use it, and me and my brother will use it and get ahead in life. So they started bringing me to real estate meetings in a baby carrier, no less. And so I just learned about this, and then when I was 5 years old, I decided I'd like to start investing. I've been learning about this, so I think it's time. So I go up to my dad, and I ask him, what should I invest in? Or actually, I said, I think I'd like to start investing. What can I invest in? And he told me, well, Devin, you should invest in what you know. And I said, well, the only thing I really know is Legos. And so I found a way to invest in that. I made a handful of mistakes. Well, you want me to go through that, or should I continue moving along?
I'm a Lego fan. My 2-year-old son has some Legos. I would love to hear. Well, how did you invest in Legos? Tell us the story, man. I'm very here's the deal, Devin. I could speak from my lens as a dad, where if my son came to me at 5 years old, he's 2, but when he's 5 and he says, "Hey, Dad, I want to start investing. Where do I start?" I want to know what your dad said to you and what you did with that information at 5 years old to get you on a path of 10 years to go from, hey, I'm kind of interested in investing, Dad. Let's do this thing with Legos, to 10 years later having a portfolio worth over $1 million. So, yeah, dig in, brother. Tell us the sauce.
Well, in that first deal, I had to be very creative. I had to figure out how to invest in, well, a toy. But what I had seen in my years of playing with the Legos, that after a while, Lego stops making sets or retires them. And then the price usually around doubles. And I had also heard buy low, sell high. And, well, if I bought it for the original price and then it doubled, that just made sense. And for enough times, yeah, that's simple. So, I found a set and I decided, let's go for, here's a really old set and the biggest set I had ever built, which was the Lego Death Star. So, let's invest in that. That seems like it's the most likely to be retired soon, since it's pretty much the oldest. So, I started saving up money, but didn't think I was saving it fast enough. So I decided, you know what, let's get a partner. And who better than my younger brother? I actually chose him because he was the comfortable and easy option, not because he had what I needed. So it was slow getting the money, and Lego actually retired the set before I had all the money I needed, which cost another $100 for the set, which was a lot of money for me at the time. We got the set, we could still make a little bit of money, and we decided to list it, but we didn't want to pay the professional eBay's 10% commission, so we decided to put it on a smaller, cheaper thing, Craigslist. But that also slowed us down more. I'm also learning the importance of time in these things as we're going along. But since we were slower selling the set, Lego released a new version of the same set before I could sell it. So ours went back down to about what we had paid. So I didn't actually make much with this first investment, but I did learn a lot of good lessons. I learned if you're going to partner with someone, make sure they provide the value you need. I learned to hire professionals, be creative, and take action.
All at the age of 5, right? So like that's pretty incredible, Devin. I really appreciate that, and it's a great lesson, I think, for everyone what you're sharing, and it's also a lesson in parenting simultaneously. So I think that's really cool. So keep going in the story. So you get into this investing, you're interested. Again, what's the rest of the story to get you to where you are today?
Over the next couple years, I went to more business meetings. I played the board game Cash Flow for any parents that want to that want their kids to learn more about investing. The board game Cash Flow, made by Robert Kiyosaki. That's one of the things that got me interested in real estate, in addition to my parents doing it. But playing Cash Flow, when I actually wanted to start investing in real estate, I was just playing that game, but in real life. So how hard could it be? And then it was when I was 7 years old.
Well,
I decided
I could tell you how hard it could be, is because you're playing with real money versus fake money. So the emotional side of losing a game, you just go in the kitchen and make a sandwich and say, I lost the game. The emotional side of losing your money when you invested in real estate, and then you lose the money and you try to go in the kitchen and make a sandwich, you're like, shit, I got no money to buy groceries. So now I'm screwed. I can't even make that sandwich. So there's this, there's a little, that's that emotional element that I think trips people up. But what's interesting of what I hear when I'm hearing this is you made it into a game without the emotional element. So how might someone
A
be
lot of
risk adverse to that? Yeah, go ahead, please.
what you were saying, yeah, a lot of people have that fear. But remember, when I bought my first house, which I'll tell the story in a minute, I was 7. I didn't have any of these fears. And my parents never gave me any of the limiting beliefs that hold people back. What if this? What if that? Well, what if we succeed? Then how far ahead do we get? What you just said, while it's true, that's also focusing on the negatives. And another big thing my parents are frequently talking about is focusing on the positive version of things, working towards something, not hiding from something.
So you bought your first piece of real estate at 7. So you went from 5 years old to buying multifamily homes, duplexes. Go through this. I have to know how you go from Legos to a house. There's got to be a little bit of a jump there. Cash flow is a bridge. Okay, I see it. What else?
Well, 7, which I had done a little bit of investing in precious metals, so gold and silver, in the couple of years in between. But that's still a big jump from real estate. But 7 years old, hey, I think I'd like to start investing in real estate. And so I started an LLC because that's what my parents recommend, or my parents think you should do before you buy real estate. Have an LLC for asset protection. And what you name it as a 7-year-old? Awesome Rentals. And then for buying my first house, being that I was 7, you can't get a bank loan. It's very difficult to get a bank loan when you're under 18. And when I was writing my first book, If I Can Do It, So Can You, I actually went to 4 banks and learned they don't want to lend me money.
Yeah.
So what do I do instead? I found someone else that would loan money. And how I got them to finance my first deal was I found a deal that they were selling a house for $50,000, and it was worth around 80 at the time. They just they need to sell it quickly because their loan was about to be called due. They were going to have to pay back a big chunk of money that they did not want to do. So sell it quickly, make a smaller amount of money, and be done with it. But that meant I could buy it for a smaller price, which is how I got a small hedge fund, a family group put their money together type hedge fund, not the big ones you see. But they decided that they would loan money on this deal because they would either get paid back or they would get a house that's worth a lot more than the mortgage. So either way, they would win.
So you structured the deal that said they have what is that saying, that they have a part ownership, like what is it, they hold the note, is that what it's called in real estate?
They do not get part ownership, but they do hold a note and mortgage, which essentially that's the 2 pieces of paper you have for a normal loan. The note essentially tells them how you're going to pay it back, and the mortgage says if you don't pay it back, we get the house.
So part of the deal was this hedge fund, this family that used, you crowdsourced the money, you got 50 grand, and that $50,000, how did they split the note? So was it a partial, each of them own a share, like a split of that note or the terms?
No. My understanding of how they work, I don't know everything about their company, but I think they put their money into some sort of company or fund or something, and then that fund loans people money, and then they pay it back to the fund, and then that gets split up from there. But it's not like 7 or 10 or 20 different people each had a tiny mortgage on the house. That'd be a lot more paperwork.
So, I mean, what's interesting to me is just watching this is there's a lot of creativity and there's a lot of resolve, right? In commitment and follow through and navigating uncertainty that I know a lot of adults who, at the first sign of any sort of barrier, the first sign of any sort of conflict or challenge, they say, "Oh, well, forget it." I guess it's just not for me, right? You go to one bank as a 7-year-old. Turns out the bank doesn't want to loan you money, and I can imagine a lot of 7-year-olds dropping their head down and saying, "Well, forget it. I guess I'm just not going to buy real estate. Let me go back to Legos." But you didn't. And so I'm curious from the mindset perspective, what's the mindset that you have when you're going through these things? Because that's universally applicable to every single listener that's listening to this right now. What would you say to that?
Well, at first, I've always been taught, and I always am talking to people in my books, when I'm teaching people here, and how I actually live my life. You always need to be creative and take action. Right? And then, as for how I overcame the what if I fail, or the times I do fail, how do I get back up? Well, think about a kid learning to walk. How many times do they fall over before they finally figure out how to walk? If you gave up after the first time you fell over, nobody would know how to walk. And so it's this, okay, sure, you get knocked down, but as long as you get up one more time than you're knocked down, you'll still end up on top.
I love that.
Approach it like a child, you could say. It's just, all right, so one more bank turned me down. All right, let's go to another bank, or let's find a different solution. What if we could get another person to loan me money? Or what if we could set up some kind of really creative deal? And so there's an infinite number of ways to do things. You just have to be creative enough to find the one that best works for you.
Awesome. I love that. And there's something to that where you're not giving up, right? And you're trying one way, and then you are pivoting if you find a barrier, and that's just business, right? That's just entrepreneurship. Whereas, a lot of people who maybe don't have that training that your parents have given you, and that you've learned for yourself, they just give up and they go, I guess, this isn't for me, or I'm going to go do something, safer. So I really love that. I'm curious, as you're going through this, okay, so you get your first house. Did you manage all the tenants and everything? Like, did you find the tenants and collect the rent and like knock on the door? And, kind of reminds me of that like Will Ferrell skit, if you guys have ever seen that, where his daughter's going and collecting the rent. But did you go collect the rent and manage these properties, or how did that look?
So I did not I was not the one managing the property. Remember,
Sure.
I still don't have a full driver's license. I could not manage all of these, even if I wanted to. So that is, I hired a property management company to actually manage these, to rent them out, to fix them up. Because I had to at the time. A lot of people try and do all the work themselves because it'll save money, or and nobody does it as good as them. But that only gets you so far before you just bought yourself another job. Yeah, you went from from one job to maybe a higher paying job, but still a job. You still have to go to work. You still have to work every day. It's not a business.
That's great. So even from the start, you were implementing sort of an ownership mindset. You didn't want to be the one, pounding the pavement and doing the work. And okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to collect the rent, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to knock out that wall, and I'm going to make sure that the dishwasher's working. Like, you were just like, nope, like outsource, and I'm going to be the one collecting the check at the end of the day, and I'm going to go find more deals. Like, that's basically what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
Pretty much.
And you're in school this whole time too? Or is this considered school?
This is part of my schooling. I'm homeschooled, and have had a business or investing class since I started, pretty much. Or at least as long as I can remember. So learning about this and doing it, was all part of what I was learning.
This is definitely not the traditional path. I have many questions, and I'm going to make sure that we hit on each of them because there's several that I want to make sure I ask. And I'll just capture them. The first question I'm curious on is receiving parenting, because most kids, they're not going to want to like listen to mom and dad. It's like they want to rebel or go the opposite direction of what mom and dad say. So I'm totally curious on receiving the parenting. I'm also curious on many of our listeners. They're still looking to get that first deal. So for you to oversimplify that first deal, coming from a newly 16-year-old to speak to someone who's maybe 2 or 3 times your age that's still trying to get that first deal under their belt, and being able to simplify it as much as possible for them because that first deal is a confidence builder I'm sure it's a big confidence builder for you to stack. So it's like, maybe there's some things there I definitely want to feel into. And then I also want to explore lessons from your parents that you have. You might have a whole book on just lessons you learned from mom and dad. My goodness, there's a bunch there. Obviously, we could go in so many different directions, but I'd like to try to hit on a couple of these. This is where, to answer your question, Biggs, these are the things that's coming up for me. This is where my curiosities are.
Well, starting off with my parents, and a lot of people want to rebel. They want to rebel against their parents. They want to do their own thing. My parents they let me do things and try things and fail, learn my lesson, and then do things better the next time. It was, and I never got into some of the drugs and alcohol stuff. And I just I just heard about, if that means you don't think clearly, you do stuff that gets you in trouble, that just doesn't seem worth it to me. Which has just kind of been my thought process about most of it. And my parents, they just built, I guess you could call it, they built a relationship with my brother and I based on respect. Like, they did things, they set an example, they were congruent, which is a big lesson my parents teach, especially in their book, Family Success Triangle, which talks a lot about them raising my brother and I and teaching us about business and investing. They were always, my parents were always congruent. Like, when they said something, when they were teaching us things, they also followed what they were teaching. It's do as I do, not do as I say, not as I do.
So good modeling, right, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And it's like, why would I want to rebel against these people who I respect,
Yeah.
and who mean what they say and do what they mean and all of those things? It's like, well, they're congruent. I want to be like them. It sounds like you emulate your parents, right?
Yeah.
You want to emulate your parents as much as possible. And so, for all the parents listening, it's like, well, do you want your kid to listen to you? How are you showing up on a daily basis? Are you doing what you're supposed to do? So, Devin, what would you say to that?
More than that, my parents have businesses, but they hire people, and so they could spend time with me, and we could do fun things, take fun trips. And so I saw all the benefits from real estate, whereas some people send their kids to pick up rent checks, sand drywall, pick up trash, and they wonder why their kids don't want to get in real estate. It has to be show them the good parts. And sure, there are the problems, but show them all the benefits of it and how it's worth it to get those benefits.
Yeah. I mean, what would you say to somebody who says, "Hey, Devin, this sounds great. Congratulations, on all your success." And also, like, dude, you kind of hit the parent lottery here. Like, my parents sucked. Like, what if there's a kid listening right now, or a young person listening right now, or even an adult listening right now who has some story about, hey, I didn't get that sort of leadership. I didn't get that sort of modeling. In fact, everything I watched my parents do and everything my parents taught me was probably the opposite of what Devin's parents taught him. Like, what would you say to that person?
Well, I would say maybe whether you had good parents or not, whatever they taught you, there you should always be learning and growing. And, well, if I can do it, so can you. If I can start buying real estate at 7 without any bank loans, then just use the benefits you do have. If you're over 18 and can get a bank loan, you can use that for a couple of different things. Use what you have, be creative, and take action.
I love that. So, Mike, I know you were curious about that first deal, and you still wanted to make sure we tied a bow on that.
Yeah. I definitely do.
Go ahead.
I definitely do, because you crowdfunded 50 grand. Okay, you were very creative with structuring that, and you got people to give you the 50,000. I'm sure you found. So number one, you found the property. So now, did dad or mom find that property, or did you find that property? And either way, it doesn't matter. You were still resourceful. But like, how does someone fall into a property that is worth 80, but they want to get out of the deal that they're willing to take 50? How did you find that, or how would you instruct someone to find a good deal like that?
Well, a lot of the properties I find, most of what I find is through talking to other investors, especially at Real Estate Investors Association meetings. I have gone to a Wednesday morning or evening meetup almost every week for most of my life. So, talking to people there is the main way I find deals. And this first one happened to be my dad, who's normally the buy and hold forever type. He had a partner wanted to do a flip, and so they were doing that. They fixed up this house, and then they were trying to sell it. And if I remember correctly, the one person they were working on selling it to was getting a bank loan to buy the property, and that fell through. And so now they're coming up on the loan ends pay us all the money back you haven't already, or a balloon on a mortgage. And so they're like, we got to sell this quick. And I came along and was like, hey, I'd like to start investing in real estate. And so this was a great opportunity for me. And then how we set this up, I said I got the loan, but what I didn't add is I got a 9-year loan on this, which means it should be paid off this year when I'm 16, when I'll need a vehicle, which was a very smart plan on my dad's part.
Going to so proximity is power. So I'm hearing go to networking events and learn from experts. So surrounding yourself around other people who are doing the same thing that you want to do. That's one thing I heard there. And as far as timing, the timing of that is I mean, it was, well, you were there because the timing was good because you were willing to show up. A lot of people aren't willing to show up. So it fell onto your lap because you knew what you wanted. You were around people who were doing the same thing that you wanted to do. And then, the timing was perfect. So it was like, I just so happen to be here ready to roll, but you've positioned yourself for that. That's really beautiful, because that's something that can easily be replicated. Did you, now the when you sold that property for the 80, did you sell it right away, or did you leave it tenant occupied with?
No, I didn't sell it. It was worth 80, meaning I could have sold it for 80, or but I still own that property today. And like you said, it should be paid off this year when I'm 16. Because I'm going to want a vehicle. That one is full credit to my dad for coming up with that. But that's the way I buy properties, is I buy it and then I rent it out, and then I keep renting it out forever. And then I get that passive income.
What do you do with the equity that's building in those properties? Are you taking loans out against the equity that as it grows to buy more properties, or what is your philosophy on that?
What I have done a couple of times is pretty much what you just said: get a loan on this one for a down payment, or to buy that one free and clear, or other things like that. What I might do once I turn 18 and can get a bank loan is essentially get a blanket loan on a whole bunch of different properties together, which is a little bit more of a complex thing, but basically you get a loan on all this whole chunk of properties at once, and then you pull the equity out of that and use that to buy a whole bunch more properties or invest in other things. Last year, I also bought part of an oil well because I needed to pay less in taxes. Fun fact: there's a thing called a kitty tax that essentially, if you're under 18 and making passive income, you quite rapidly get bumped up to your parents' tax bracket for that, which means you pay a lot more in taxes.
That is definitely good to know, right? And this is really cool,
This is
man.
fun, man.
So this is really good. I really like the threads here. I mean, I'm also curious, like when you look at how you balance all this with just being a kid, right? Like growing up and having fun and maybe having a social life or whatever. What does that look like? Like how do you make time for it all, or do you find it's pretty easy?
A big thing on that, especially that my parents talk about in their family success triangle book I mentioned earlier, is integrating everything together, integrating the family and business. Learning about the real estate while also playing games with that cash flow, uh, talking to people and meeting people, networking at the real estate events. I'm homeschooled, so I'm not always meeting as many younger people, but going to the real estate meetings, I can meet a lot of other people there. And I also happen to be in Boy Scouts, uh, so I can meet more people there. Yeah, but it's a lot about how do we accomplish our goals while doing these things together? How do we bring our life together so that it's focused on the path, on the goals that we want to be working on?
So there's an integration, right, to the vision and the goals, and then it's all moving in the same direction, right? Because there's an alignment to what you're trying to create. So I love that.
Kind of on top of all of this, surrounding all of it, is I actually last year I started a free online networking group for anyone 8 to 24 years old, where I actually teach them about business and investing. So I actually have weekly online meetings. It's completely free to join, but that is, I can meet other people my age. I can teach other people. I can help the world. I can help make the world a better place, like my parents have told me every night before I go to bed. But I can do all of these things, and I do it together. I am integrating all of these things together.
I really like that what you said, what your parents said to you every day as you go to bed, that you what was it, that you can make the world a better place? Is that what you said?
Dream about making the world a better place.
So dream about making the world a better place. And you said you have a younger brother. You said
Yep, Ethan.
Ethan, and how old is Ethan right now?
He is 13 years old at the moment.
Got it. So 3 year gap about between the two of you. And do you find that I'm interested? Do you feel like Ethan feels a lot of intimidation about your success and the track record that you have with real estate and whatnot, or is he inspired to compete to be even better than you? I was just curious on that one.
He sees it as a challenge, I think. He also owns, I think he's at 39 units right now. And he has also published a book and worked together, and he is doing a lot of the same things I'm doing and doing some of his own things. But we're all working and helping each other.
Yeah, this is great. What it reminds me of, Devin. There's a book. It's actually I just finished it recently. The Art of Learning by Josh Waiskin. I think is how you say his last name. This is the movie, Searching for Bobby Fischer, the chess player. This is essentially his story. This is Bobby Fischer. This is like the movie. The movie Searching for Bobby Fischer was based off this kid. and he was the Cliff Notes version of the story. I mean, he was a prodigy, a young prodigy who reached high levels of success as a young kid. And then when he reached a point of like being the best chess player in the world, just completely like buckled, folded up, like put all this pressure on himself. All the eyes were on him. And then really just said, I want out of the spotlight. And you see that almost like in Hollywood, child actors. You see these, individuals that just like can't take the pressure of being just amazing, and they have like some sort of regret on missing out on some things in their childhood or all this pressure, and then they kind of pivot and go in a different direction. How have your parents or just your environment, how is some of that being brought into you right now? Like, if any, if it's being discussed with you, like, is there ever a back door where it's like, hey, by the way, Devin, if you just want to like go watch porn and hang out with your boys and like go play video games and just be a kid, like you don't have to continue on this books and the speaking and the real estate and being the most successful young kid in the world, or like I know that's not what you want right now, but maybe the 25-year-old version of you is saying like, hey man, don't miss out on some of this
Well,
stuff. Just curious if there's anything there.
the way I'm seeing it is, while theoretically maybe I could fade into obscurity, people would forget my name, and a couple of people's lives would be changed by some of the things that I've done and taught. Or I could continue working and growing and teaching people, and over time help hundreds of thousands of people, and make and change the entire world. And you mentioned video games. What is the purpose of that? To increase a number, to get to the top, to prove your worth, to feel like you've done well. Well, what if I could do that? What if I could get the same, like, hey, I'm doing this. I have a bigger number of people that I'm helping. All right. I'm feeling important because I can help all these people, and then everybody is better and they all like me because of it. Or if nothing else, people's lives are just better and everything in the world gets better. And then maybe my life gets a little bit easier, or it's a little bit cooler, like, help with that. But just all of that. So, sure, I could do in game, but what if I could do in real life?
It's great. It's a great answer. And, it's really cool to watch the journey here that you've been on, Devin. And I'm so excited for the future for you as well. At the end of every show, we always ask our guests 3 questions. The first question we ask people is, what do you think the world needs most right now?
I think the world needs, especially the younger generation, to learn more, especially about money, to understand it better. A lot of the issues we have in the world today could be solved if people just learned about money, how to run a business, how to be more successful, how to think like wealthy people, rich people, whatever you want to call it. But uh, being able to see the big picture, and not just trying to work 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year for 40 or 50 years of your life to retire on half as much as you made while you were working.
I think every listener needs to replay that and listen to it on repeat, because if you feel stuck in the rat race right now of building and working, or working and working, exchanging your time, just what Devin said, to retire on less money than what you're working so hard to make right now. Wow. That's a pretty profound statement that I think everyone needs to hear. So thank you for that, Devin. Our second question that we'd like to ask is, what are 1 to 3 books that you think people should read? Obviously, you have yours and your family books, and we want you to plug those here in just a moment. But what are 1 to 3 books that you think people should read that has helped you in your journey?
One of my favorite books that's great for anyone In the rat race, the ones to get started investing, any of that. What the book my parents had me read before I bought my first house, Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Absolutely incredible book. I'm sure a lot of people have talked about it, but that was an awesome book. And then, aside from my family's books, well, I guess for the people that want to learn more about some of the things that could happen in the future, government, especially government overreach and that sort of thing. One of my favorite fiction books of all time, Atlas Shrugged. I see, Mike, you have it behind you.
I can't say I've read the whole thing. I've glanced a little bit at some of it, but yes, that is a
I listened to,
beast of a book.
I got an audiobook and got through the whole thing. It's really good. You should definitely finish that. And then a third book for the people that want to grow but aren't going fast enough. I don't feel like they're doing enough, and just keep trying to work harder but can't get ahead. I guess the 10x Rule by Grant Cardone. I read that one recently and it was pretty good.
By the way, the plug on Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad. I read that book when I was 19 and I bought my first house when I was 20 because I didn't want to buy a car. Assets versus liabilities and seeing the difference between the two. I was like, all right, let's go put this money and ride the hoopty, the 1991 Mitsubishi is what I was rocking for quite some time because I was like, all right, let me put that money in a house. So that was a transformative book for me too. So I love that one. Biggs, to you.
And our final question, what does it mean to you, Devin, to be better than rich?
To be better than rich would be to not only have the money and the mindset of being rich, but also using that and having the time that you want to have, being able to take the trips that you want, and then after all of that, putting it together and helping teach other people how to become rich, how to become wealthy, and then better than rich.
It's really beautiful. It's profound for anyone, but just to see it in so young, I think there's two versions of me as we have this conversation. There's the version of me that it's like the 38-year-old that's like learning and saying, wow, what the hell was I doing at 15, 16 years old? Like just like in awe of how much I sucked. Like there's a version of me that's watching that. And then there's a version of me that's like, man, my parents didn't do a good job. And then there's a version of me that's like, gosh, I got to do a great job as a parent. Like I could raise a kid like this. This is awesome. And then there's a version of me that's listening to this saying, wow, you could start anywhere. Like these are some really simple best practices that anyone could start, anytime at any point in time. And I know you wrote a book that's called, the book is called If I Can Do It, You Can Do It, or If I Can Do It, So Can You. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your books, the family books, where people could stay in touch with you if they want to, just continue having this conversation with you, Devin. Where might they be able to go?
To get through the books, for anyone that wants to get started in real estate, wants to learn more about it, and wants it broken down so that a 10-year-old can understand it. My first book, If I Can Do It, So Can You. I wrote it at 10, published at 11. So really simple and easy, but explains a lot of the basic things about real estate. And then for any of the kids that just want a fun book, but maybe you still want to learn some stuff, you can read my book, The Garage, and my brother's book, The Treehouse. Just fun fiction stories about kids turning what they know and like into a business. And then for all the parents out there, people that really want to start a business and then want to integrate family and business, for any of those three groups, the Family Success Triangle by Eric and Lila Wohlwend is an incredible book on family and business and integrating the two.
And the book, The Garage, you did that with Mark Victor Hansen from Chicken Soup for the Soul, right?
Yeah, well, the Garage, Family Success Triangle, and the Treehouse were all published by Mark's publishing company, Mark Victor Hansen Library.
That's great. I really like him. He's great. Are you guys personally? Do you guys know him personally, or?
Yeah, we actually a few days ago we went out to dinner with him when we were in Scottsdale. But yeah, we talked to him and figure out how we can better the world together.
Yeah, he's a really good guy. Now that I know you know him, that I like even more. So that's great, man. Well, hey, this was so much fun, David. Thank you so much. And just again, listener, if you've enjoyed this episode as much as we have, make sure you share it with a friend, connect it to somebody. Have your kids listen to this episode. Get them the books. Get involved if you have children in Devin's entrepreneurial group. There's so much going on that he does. I was just checking out your Instagram. Like, he's putting out videos. He's putting out all sorts of content. So definitely give him a follow and make sure you're engaged with him, because he's got some amazing things going on. And Devin, keep spreading your light, man. I mean, this has been so uplifting and inspiring today. And I really do believe that you can change the world if you keep doing what you're doing. So thank you so much. Again, listener, make sure that you share this with a friend, subscribe on YouTube. Devin, is there one more thing you want to say before we send us out?
Yes, one more real quick thing. I had mentioned a group for young people earlier. If anybody wants to find more about that for them or their kids or anything, clearskytrainer.com/MIT. And thank you very much for having me on. And everybody, subscribe to them. Learn more from them. This is a great podcast. Follow them. Share this with everybody. It was great being on here.
Appreciate it, man. And again, until next week, leave today better than you found it. We'll see you next time on the Better Than Rich Show. Have a great day. What's up, guys? Biggs here. I hope you enjoyed that clip. If you did, go ahead and check out the other video that's being recommended on the screen right now. You can also subscribe to our channel. And then if you really are interested in what we do, go to automatedelegatesystemize.com to learn more about what we're up to. Thanks again.